Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Meteorologist Greg Majewski, your trusted weather source here in the North Georgia Majewski Studios with your weather update here on your January the 21st, 2026. Wrapping up our hump day with some pretty decent weather, not bad, but we do have some clouds and rains coming at us. And of course, everybody's talking about what to expect this upcoming weekend with a winter storm. We do have a winter storm watch up for the area, and we're going to kind of break down some of the forecasting ice storm mayhem that we're having with this system. We're going to break it all down for you here in this update. Now, if you live anywhere across North Georgia and you're new to our channel here on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel and make this one of your trusted weather sources. And oh, by the way, don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted when we do these weather updates. All right, let's go ahead and get into our forecast as we're looking at a pretty nice afternoon across Dahlonega. We got some sunshine, some high clouds around, looking pretty good there. Also looking decent down at Lake Lanier as we're getting later in the afternoon. Sun coming down, but we got a little few clouds, looking really nice outside. Really no complaints, looking pretty good indeed. Now, local radar, we're kind of seeing the fringes of what's going to be coming at us here for tonight. You notice a little bit of this rain up here across Alabama. That's going to be coming in here for tonight, so watch out for that as the clouds are going to be thickening up. And this is not associated with our winter storm yet. This is just kind of a little weak system moving in here for today. That's still back off the California coast, but that's going to be arriving as we go into Saturday and Sunday. And boy, it's going to be a tricky forecast, guys. Very tricky. All right. So let's go look at our regional radar here as temperatures fairly seasonal into the 50s. We got high pressure down across the southeast coast there, but we got some rains back over Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee. So we get a little bit of rain tonight. Shouldn't amount to a whole lot. And folks across northeast Georgia, if the Europeans right, might get a little bit of a surprise. I'll show you that here in just a second. Here is our current watches and warnings, again favoring north of Metro Atlanta here. Winter storm watches are up. I do suspect by the time we get to Friday, those will be transitioning over to some sort of winter weather advisories or winter storm warnings, depending on how things work out with this forecast. It's very, very tricky. We're tracking a low pressure system. That's one variable. A wedge of high pressure up to the northeast. That's another variable here. And where that cold air is sitting up to the north. So we got little things, little actions going on that we're going to have to work out the details for here over the next couple of days. All right, so first we're going to take a look at the European model here as we go into that. Let me switch down to this. Here we go. As we're going to be watching this very closely. Now watch that little timestamp there in the right-hand corner so you see what day it is, what time it is, and what day it is. So you notice here, this is like 1 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we got a little bit of snow showing up here across northeast Georgia. That's interesting. It shouldn't amount to anything. Again, just a little bit showing up there for a couple hours, and it's gone back to rain. But thought that was interesting to see when that rain run came in. And some scattered showers on Friday, but the main action is coming in here on Saturday. Now, European's a little bit slower than the GFS. It doesn't really pull it in here until about 4 to 7 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, it's mostly a freezing rain thing. Again, a very, very slim. That orange is basically where we look at your sleet zone, and it's very, very tight through here. So it means a very steep drop off in the Arctic air, in the mild air to the south. So very, very quick drop off in temperature there. All right, so look at this. We're stuck in the freezing rain here. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to stop it right here. You can kind of see the low. It's a 10:05 low right here across central Alabama. All right, so the other model is a little bit further south. We're not talking about a big difference here. We're talking maybe 75 miles. That's all the difference in the world can make here as far as who's going to get a lot of the heavy icing and who doesn't. Okay, so on this solution, the icing is not overly bad. In fact, it switches over to just all rain there by Sunday afternoon as we warm well above freezing here for most of the area. Then the bitterly cold air comes on in here. So that's the European model, and I'll be upfront. That is my preferred model of choice. That's the one I typically forecast with because it tends to be the more reliable. All right, now here we go with we'll break down the different winter events here. Now with this particular model, it is actually putting the heavier snows. I think both the GFS and European are pretty much set on the heavy snow. We're going to have that. They're just different on the path. You see the path right up here, but the GFS is going to be further to the south when I show you that, all right? Now, as far as the sleet is concerned, here's the sleet. And you can see the sleet, none across North Georgia. That's not an issue. It is an issue on the GFS, but not on the European. And then as far as the icing is concerned, it kind of favors northeast Georgia, your typical wedge position up here, showing about a half inch to almost an inch of ice. That's enough to cause a lot of problems with the power lines and stuff, but it's not very broad brush there. You see this back to the west. Wow, look over toward areas over toward, you see it over here across the Carolinas, and then back over here across areas of Arkansas. Just some very rough weather over there with some very intense icing. Now, let's go look at the American GFS. Here's the other model. A little bit different. Does not show that little snow tonight, by the way. Just a little rain there coming on through. So let's get on to this one. We'll bring it all up to date. There's that orange. A little more sleet showing up into this model. All right, so it's colder. And it's coming in a little bit sooner than the other model. About a few hours. So it's a little bit quicker. So we got a 1040 high that's basically bringing in some of this colder weather wedge coming in this way. All right, so it's a little bit colder. A stronger wedge with this, and as a result, a lot bigger icing field. All right, we got sleet across a lot of North Georgia. You got a bigger area of the freezing rain in there in the pink zone, going down even into central Georgia. So a much bigger area here, and then it pulls on out here slowly, and then we go briefly over some rain, and then go over to the cold weather coming in. So there's some subtle differences between the two that we got to really work out the details on. So let's go ahead and break down again the snows. Here, obviously, further south. You notice that, further south than what we were seeing with the other one. Both of them are showing a pretty intense path of snow. There's no doubt about somebody's going to get a dumping of snow on them. It's just a question of exactly where. You know, does Tennessee get buried, or is it mostly up to the north? So I'll tell you, if I'm one of my forecast buddies in Tennessee, I'm having a headache on this one. But I do favor the European. I'm sure they do as well. All right, so let's look at your sleet totals. Much heavier. We actually see a lot more sleet here in Georgia, where the European was showing none. We're seeing some on the GFS. What that means is that we got colder. The cold air at the lower levels is thicker, so it allows it's falling as snow, goes to rain, and it refreezes back to ice before hitting the ground. So it's a thicker, colder air at the surface. That's what that means. All right, and of course the freezing rain part of this is also more intense and further south. We're still showing 2 inches of heavy freezing rain in here. So this is a much more significant freezing rain event across Georgia on the GFS because it's a colder solution. All right. So I want to talk about the temperatures. That's very important here. I want to get into the temperatures here. We're looking at the European first. We're starting at 12 o'clock or 7 o'clock on the 12Z run on Saturday. All right. And I want you to pay attention to the temperatures. Okay. Now, this is going on forward. This is going up till this is 1 o'clock. All right. We're still mostly above freezing as of 1 o'clock on Saturday. GFS is going to say a little bit different, but this is the European. All right. And we don't really start dropping off temperature-wise until we get in the evening hours. Then we're starting to get below freezing here. 27, 28, 30, 31, 31, 31. That's when your freezing rain will start into the evening hours. All right. We keep it going. It's going to go for a few hours overnight. Then we start warming up toward dawn. Here comes the low. It's further north. So look at this warm contrast here. 65 to 31. Big difference right in there, right? So again, we got to look at that sharp front there. I mean, you're talking about Metro Atlanta sitting at 63 and 34 up in Gainesville. I have seen that before. So a big swath, and then the temperatures just plummet going in toward your Monday morning. So Monday morning, we got everybody down in the teens, very cold, especially if you've got any ice left in the trees. And then the daytime highs on Monday here on this model shows mostly everybody staying below freezing or just a little bit above. The areas over here a little bit above, but a lot of northwest Georgia here sitting below freezing. And then we get very, very cold going into your Tuesday. A lot of teens and lower 20s in here. The GFS is even much colder because it's accumulating sleet on the ground. I'm going to show you that difference here in a second. Now, there is another shot that does come down. If you look at Wednesday morning is pretty cold. The whole week's going to be real cold next week, folks. Just plan on that, because here comes the next cold shot coming down on the 29th. Where you're looking at where temperatures here, again, not getting barely big above freezing on the 29th, and then very frigid cold air going into Friday. So the entire week next week is looking very chilly across Georgia. Now, got to go over to the American GFS model. I want to show the difference here, okay? Pay attention to the temperatures. Watch what happens here is by about noon, we're already starting to see temperatures drop below freezing here as that wedge is stronger. And we're seeing that basically the dry air is coming in, it's precipitating, it's evaporational cooling taking place, and it's cooling the atmosphere down. You get a widespread upper 20s in there. That's optimal temperatures for freezing rain to be an issue there. All right, and then it's spreading further south. Look at this. I mean, much, much bigger. It's starting earlier, so the freezing rain event's stronger. Now we're going to track the low. It stays below freezing going into Sunday morning. This is about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning here. 11 o'clock right there. We're still looking very cold with ice. Look at the temperature difference down here. It's 70 degrees down here in Blakely down there in southwest Georgia, but 27 degrees up there in Gainesville. Look at that. Almost a just a big difference in temperature. And then this low comes on by. Notice the low is further south. Again, we're talking about 70, maybe 70 miles. That's basically about it, the difference in the two tracks. That makes all the difference in the world. So 1 mile is the lowest tracking a little further south and is colder because of the wedge. Now, I will tell you this much. When it comes to forecasting wedges, they tend to get underappreciated a little bit here across our area. At least that's what I've seen historically. All right, so this pulls on out, and then obviously it turns very bitterly cold behind here. So look at it, it's showing like 8 degrees up in Chattanooga, a lot of teens, 20s in here on your Monday. And then we don't even get above freezing for a lot of people up here on Monday. So it's very bitterly cold. And that sets up for this Tuesday morning, which will really blow your socks off, which I don't believe this will happen. But see all that gray? Yeah, those are temperatures below zero. I don't see that happening, folks. I really don't. So, but keeps us very cold going into Tuesday next week, below freezing on Tuesday. And then Wednesday's looking cold there at teens and 20s once again. And then going into the 29th, I'm going to take this all the way out the same as we did the other model here. It's not showing that other shot that the European's showing. So it doesn't show it here until, it just kind of keeps them on low end. So it doesn't show that next shot. And the European is the preferred model. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Look at the forecast here. As we watch the maps here, I want you to pay attention to the size, the scope of this storm. It's just monster, covering so much real estate. So here comes the little weak system for tomorrow, going into Friday. And then we go into Friday. Here comes our big, bad high-pressure system coming on south, 1052. Big old cold Arctic high pressure dropping southward. And as it does so, we're going to run into that moisture, and we're going to see all this orange. That's all that wintry mix. And the blue is that dark blue is where the heavier snows are supposed to fall. And then Sunday should be wrapping it up there as this goes on out to sea. And then Monday and Tuesday just plenty cold. And staying dry for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just cold, and cold all next week. All right, so let's look at our forecast here for tomorrow. On your Thursday, 52 to 39. Again, good chance of rain overnight, around about 60, 70%. We'll drop it down about 30, 40% for tomorrow. Well, kind of 30, 40% across the area for tomorrow. And then daytime, overnight lows tonight, mostly in the 30s, so not as cold. Again, your areas across northeast Georgia, watch out. Maybe you see a stray snowflake if the European's right. Don't worry, it's not accumulating. I just thought that was an interesting thing to see on the model there. Daytime highs, again, mostly seasonable, lower 50s here for most everybody with some showers around and light rain amounts. Regionally looking like this, 54 in Birmingham, 61 in Columbia, 49 in Memphis, 67 in Destin, 72. That's nice down there in New Orleans. Looking pretty good. All right, here we go with the next 7 days. All right, so we're above freezing there, going in toward Friday, and then we're dropping into the 30s. And then how big of a window we're going to have Saturday night and a Sunday for the icing to take place? That's what we got to determine. Very cold on Monday, and I will tell you this much: the temperatures really for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be dictated on if we get any kind of serious sleet accumulation or not, or how much icing we get in the trees, because those will have an impact on those overnight low temperatures and our daytime highs. But one thing, like I said, all next week looks cold the whole week. So just plan on the coldest week of winter coming at us. And then the European models even kicking out another cold shot coming down around Groundhog Day. Looking very nippy and very cold here as we finish up the month of January and going into February. It's interesting, the cold air moved in on the 10th, and it's pretty much stayed there for the most part here going in toward the early portion of February. So it's definitely a little bit longer than we traditionally see here across these parts. Again, I appreciate you guys checking us out here on the YouTube channel here. And again, this will be the channel where one of the resources with the 24-hour weather channel will come. So please make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're alerted when we do these updates. Because if you don't do that, YouTube won't let you know. That's just the way it is. Anyway, that's it for now. You guys take it easy, because stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.